Dietitian Talk. We're really excited to be back. This is our once a month dietitian talk. Today, the topic is on mental health. And I am James Marin, integrative registered dietitian, environmental nutritionist.
I'm Delia Marin, integrative gut health dietitian. And we're excited to be joined by a few of the incredible dietitians on our team. So we'll let you all introduce yourselves. Katie, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Chacos. I'm a licensed registered dietitian, and I'm also a PhD student studying interventions with diet and breast cancer patients.
Love it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Laura Sanchez. I'm also a licensed registered dietitian. I work with women's health and gut health and emotional release, also known as the emotional RD. Great to be here.
Love it.
And I'm Joseph Bartoloni, registered dietitian. I specialize in eating disorders, disordered eating, intuitive eating.
Perfect. Awesome. So wonderful to have our whole team here, and we're kind of spread
Not
out.
our whole team.
Not the whole team. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're missing one, but I should say majority of the team. So it's always great to be talking with you all. The topic we chose is mental health. So we're going to get right into it. But for those of you watching live, whether you're on Facebook, whether on YouTube, Twitch, or wherever you're watching this, feel free to comment. We can see your chat live. If you have any questions, comments, you want to add to the conversation, we more than welcome that, because we are here to also answer your questions as well as discuss this important topic. And it's 'tis the season, right? It's winter, less sunlight, holidays. You're seeing that uncle that annoys you, or maybe you don't have a great relationship with your parents, or there's that family drama, there's the food, there's you name it, right? So there's a whole list of things happening. So from us as dietitians, what are some tips maybe we have, or we can get into so many different avenues with this, but I think maybe I'll start off since I'm talking, but overall what we want to say and where we're coming from, we definitely take a very gut-centered approach. A lot of what's good for your gut is good for your mental health, right? So we know that connection is there, those efferent and efferent pathways, your gut and your brain communicating. And that kind of goes back, if you're only going to watch this first couple of minutes of this video, if you're eating your plant foods, your prebiotic plants, your fiber, you're going to be getting wonderful things for your gut, and it's going to be wonderful for your brain, right? So that is key. That is so important. What else? What other tips would you guys have, or what are you guys feeling about this topic?
I think
Go ahead, Laura.
I think making sure also that, like you mentioned, James, that now with the winter, the sun is like it's harder. Making sure that we're taking that vitamin D, like if it's appropriate, obviously, or getting outside as much as we can whenever possible, and always looking at the light first, to get that circadian rhythm started and hopefully get some vitamin D.
Yes. Was that what you were going to say, Katie?
Well, I was actually going to kind of kick off this talk. I know we also wanted to bring to everybody watching that if you are struggling with mental health and you're having a hard time, please talk to somebody. There are resources out there, both online, speak with your doctor. They can connect you with a mental health specialist, a therapist, a psychiatrist. So kind of first and foremost, please get help if you need it. But another really important thing with mental health and diet is if you are kind of struggling with your mental health right now, it might be the time to reevaluate your goals and what those goals are, how big and expansive they are. And sometimes maybe it's, hey, did I eat a piece of fruit today? And if you got that piece of fruit, then let's take that as a win. Or I got outside, or I took my vitamin D supplement. Maybe let's try during this particular season in your life to form those smaller goals that are achievable and still count as really big wins.
I love it. And it kind of like, from what you're saying, is like kind of being positive, right? Or we've been, as I talk about it too, like there's a lot of dirt when you're finding these gold nuggets. And like when you're looking for these gold nuggets, you got to sift through a lot of dirt and a lot of rock. And it's like you can either focus on all the dirt and the rock and you're like, oh my gosh, all this digging's horrible. Or you could focus on like, I'm gonna find that gold nugget because I know they're here. And we have all these beautiful like little wins. And there's those big gold nuggets of like, I got this amazing promotion, or like I won the lottery. Like there's these massive gold nuggets, but there's also these little gold nuggets that are also cool of like, I took my supplements today, and me and my wife or my significant other or whoever it is, boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, like we're having a great day today and we're happy and we're connecting, and that's a win. Or I mean, there's so many of these little wins that I think we take for granted, and that's amazing. I think that's a great, again, perspective, right? And shift on that mindset that you're having kind of going into the holidays and winter and beyond, for sure. Love it.
Mine is kind of related to just support and the people you surround yourself with. Most of the times, a lot of the things I see is that things that when people are really struggling with their mental health, is the people around them that they could reach out to, or that actually reach out to them. And, since I work with patients with eating disorders, like it might be a day where they just didn't want to get out of bed. So they didn't eat anything that day. And yeah, really having that support system, whether it's professionals using the resources that are available to you, or family members, friends. I think that's an important part, and, just learning from those people as well.
Yeah. And to go back, with learning and who you have around you and those resources, and kind of what Katie mentioned, the hotline 988, it's kind of like 911. So again, if you are really, really struggling, if you can't get out of bed, if you're really feeling low, and some thoughts that maybe you don't want are there, and you need help, and maybe those around you aren't in a place to help you. Maybe you're in a toxic environment. Maybe you've grown up in a toxic environment. 988, again, depending where you're watching this, it might be a little bit different, but if you search that, if you can text it to 988 for mental health support, and someone is there to help you. Like, and that's why this is so important, because we're seeing the rise in mental health issues. We're seeing it connect to so many other comorbidities, and those, even with other comorbidities, are at higher risk for depression, anxiety, even suicidal tendencies, and the list goes on and on. So it's so important. It is, as a dietitian, kind of in our scope to address this and facilitate help. But yeah.
And yes, I love how we're talking about kind of the outer environment and how we can recognize both the positives and maybe the struggles that can be occurring in our outer environment. And as someone specializing in the gut, I always want to highlight our inner environment and how that really plays into the neurotransmitters that we can make. Because like James was saying, there are more signals going from gut to brain than going from brain to gut, meaning our gut health is a powerful tool in trying to balance or modulate this exchange between our gut and our brain. And we know that we often talk about things like dopamine and serotonin as some of our happy chemicals, right? Dopamine is one of our neurotransmitters that makes us feel happy, or serotonin is one of our neurotransmitters that makes us feel calm. And a lot of people don't realize 70 to 95% of serotonin, for example, again, the one that helps us feel calm, it's actually produced by bacteria in the gut. So that could be a place to start. How is my gut health? What are some certain things that I'm focusing on in order to better my gut health? We do know also 50+% of our dopamine is generated in our gut. We generate quite a large amount of something called GABA. And again, GABA is one of our neurotransmitters that supports our mood. Are my gut microbes, are my bacteria, my yeast, my fungus, are all those in balance to the point where I am efficiently making some of those things? I can't even tell you how many times my patients have told me, oh my gosh, once I started focusing on eating foods that I love, that love me back, make me feel my best, and that are nourishing my gut microbiome, I feel more calm. I have more energy. I have less anxiety. I feel like my depression is improving. So that inner environment can be so important.
Totally agree. And even I love, we're talking about this at another meeting, but the idea of the inner environment and it being heavily, heavily influenced by those around you, right? So we think of a hug, we think of an embrace, we think of a kiss or any type of touching as, oh, it's affection, it's love from someone, but it's even deeper than that. It is sharing microbes. It is those people in your home, even the pets in your home, the materials in your home, again showing this universal connection of like, yes, the inside matters, but the inside is also heavily shaped by the outside. And going, am I getting a hug longer than 20 minutes or not 20 minutes, 20 seconds? Imagine 20-minute hug. Let's do it.
It's called
But
sleep.
it's called sleep. Yeah. So like a 20-second hug or longer, or that embrace and that kiss, and are those in your household healthy and also have a healthy gut microbiome that's going to help facilitate your gut microbiome? So it's really, really cool. It's a lot. We're not saying, hey, think about, oh, you're depressed and anxious, think about all these things and get overwhelmed. Like, no, we hope you take one of these gold nuggets, right? One of them, and like go with it or flow with it. And yeah, be kind of inspired by it. Your body is amazing, your mind is amazing, and the gut is kind of the medium in which they're connected and talking. So really, really cool to think about. Yeah.
Like when I was listening to you, like just now, Dahlia saying about the internal world, and I don't know, like that kind of brought up this thought to me that, we call it a lot like mental health, but it's that really, like we're now seeing a lot with mind body connection. It's not just the mental part, because mentally, yes, we live from the neck up in this society. And that's when we have realized that we've disassociated ourselves so much from our body, from our signals, from our emotions, from our feelings and sensations. And when you were saying about the gut, about how it's, from the gut to the brain, it's, I can't remember, but I saw it in a study that it was like 20% thoughts and then 80% everything is like afferent from the body to the brain.
Yes.
And so I just think it's interesting how it's just all mental, change your perspective, change it to positive thinking. And sometimes it's harder than that. I don't know if you ever experienced that, if you don't feel safe, or if you don't feel pretty, or if you don't feel a certain way, you may tell yourself and look in the mirror and be like, okay, I'm going to try all of these affirmations and be like, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful, I'm beautiful. But if you don't feel it, you won't believe it. So it's just like very interesting to see this interconnection between the mind and the body, and that many times healing starts feeling when we feel, instead of the other way around, thinking and then healing is just like feeling first. And it is like so tied with like, like our gut and all of these internal processes.
I think that's so powerful what you're talking about. And, I see this often of people have really high expectations of nutrients healing them. And it's really hard to heal a body that you hate, right? Or that you have a psychologically unhealthy relationship with, or that you expect food to really do these incredible things to you when you're having such a stressful relationship with it. That's one question I always like to ask my patients. What is your inner voice when it comes to you buying food, preparing food, eating the food? Is it something that you're telling yourself is going to give you a stomach ache? Is it something that you're telling yourself you're afraid to eat? Is it something that you say, oh yeah, I bet you this will give me constipation, diarrhea? So you have these really high expectations because you're getting frustrated. You're saying, I'm putting all my, financial effort into this. I'm putting a lot of my time, my energy into making these meals, buying these meals, cooking these meals. And then once it comes, I don't have a good reaction to them. And it might not be the food at all. It could be that nervous system state that we're keeping ourselves in. And I know, this was something that Joseph had brought up when we were speaking earlier as well, of depending on the state of mind that you're in as well, your nervous system will react. Because yes, like you said, Laura, 80% is from gut to brain. But I always like to say there's a little elevator that carries those signs up, and it's something called the vagus nerve. And if our vagus nerve, if the little elevator is out of commission, if it's shut down because we're in such a stressed state, then maybe you're making what you need to be making in your gut, but it's not traveling. The transport elevator is not working. So it's not getting to your brain. So your body's telling you it's there, I'm doing what I need to be doing, but you're not feeling those effects. So I know, Joseph, you wanted to talk about that. I'd love for you to expand a little bit more upon that and the different states that we can be in.
Yeah, definitely. I love that explanation, Dahlia. And the elevator, I'm gonna use that one. But yeah, basically the two main states from the nervous system for the autonomic nervous system are parasympathetic state, which is mainly known as the rest and digest state, and the other one, the fight or flight, commonly known, the sympathetic state. It's actually fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Um, but yeah, when you're in one of those states, like say the fight or flight state, you're not in the other state. So a lot of people that have stress around food, whether it's stress around like eliminating food or like fears that this food might be cause intolerance or like fears that like even like, oh, this food is related to trauma, or even like minor things like this food is high in fat, and it activates that stress response, then while you're eating, you're not digesting. If your body is in that stress response, it puts a halt to motility in the gut, to producing enzymes, to all of the actions that take place in the parasympathetic state. Um, so yeah, like the one thing I like to talk about a lot is like mindful eating, and really taking time to have the meal, enjoy the meal, check in on your emotions, and if you're hungry, if you're full, what you're feeling at that time before you engage in eating, um, because it's really, if you're not doing that, it's an uphill battle. If your body is operating like, I'm not sure how much it is, but when you're in that fight or flight state, your body is trying to preserve and hold on to nutrients. It's not trying to digest and absorb them. So it's really just, you could do, um, eat all the foods that are, good for you and your individual situation. You could get a lot of diversity, you could do all these things. But if you're in that fight or flight response, it's just going to be an uphill battle.
Absolutely. And knowing that we all recognize this, I'd love to hear some of your favorite tips. So if your patient is telling you this, right? We have patients who say, yes, actually, I did notice that my inner voice is very negative. I am going into that fight or flight, freeze or fawn when it comes to eating. I am really, really triggered around food, or the people I eat my food with are very triggering to me. So my body's in a triggering state. What are some of your favorite tips? And I'd love to hear some of the favorite things that you love to suggest when someone's telling you that, because we want to help them move forward.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things I notice the most is when people do have that internal dialogue that puts them in that stress response, that a lot of the times they'll want to fight it. Like, so for instance, if they'll say like, this food is going to make me feel horrible, they'll do the opposite and say, oh, this food is going to make me feel amazing. And it's kind of like when they do that, it leads into this like back and forth battle between the like inner voice. Like it's kind of like black and white thinking, like this food is either great or this food is going to be terrible for me. So I really encourage them to, and like, there's no special like saying I could give to all patients. So I just kind of like to give them prompts, to think about like, when you're in, depending on how stressed you are, right? Like what is a response you could say? Like you could say like, some patients just say, I'm nourishing my body, instead of saying like, this food is going to be amazing for me, or like, taking it to the extreme and being like, this food is going to like heal all my problems. That's one thing that typically where we end up, because first off, a lot of people are not aware of the internal dialogue first, but then once they are, they try to do good and follow that positive mindset more, and then it just leads into this back and forth to where they kind of stay in the same place and they're not moving forward.
Okay. Yeah. So it sounds like, having that positive affirmation, but maybe not toxically positive, right? Where you're trying to force your body out of this state, but, just a mantra to meditate on while you're eating of, I'm nourishing myself, and giving yourself that comfort to say, okay, I know that these are nourishing foods, so I'm nourishing myself. Katie, I'd love to hear from you. Do you have any other tips that you like to give to people who find that they are often eating in a triggered stress state?
Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is to really think about what happens before that triggering moment, especially dealing with mental health or depression, where eating healthy foods is one of like the hardest things to do. I like to say, like, what can we do to prepare for when those moments come? So one easy thing is just to make like an extra serving of that nourishing meal. Keep it in your freezer so that it is ready to go. You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to go on Uber Eats and order something that may make you feel not so great, less nourished. And then that way you have what you need, and you can kind of periodically do that in states when you're feeling a little bit more energized, a little bit more motivated. And in those times where you are really struggling, to kind of think back to, how can I nourish myself? What's that one little thing I can do today that might seem really big, but is enough to kind of make you start feeling better? Even something as simple as using those like great technologies that we have. If you can afford to, get your groceries delivered so you don't have to leave your house and you can still get those nourishing foods, or find a like meal delivery service, working with a dietitian to help find those things for you, where you can get those quick nourishing meals that don't kind of suck up the energy that you have that you might need for maybe something else in your day.
I love it. And on that note too, click down below if you guys want our good gut healthy holiday recipes. And so that's huge, where it's like, this food is nourishing, right? You can still eat great holiday foods, or what are traditionally known as holiday foods, and have them still be great, again, filled with those prebiotic fibers that your healthy microbes love to eat, keeping you regular, so you're getting the toxins out of your body in one of the main ways, which is having a bowel movement every day. So you're staying healthy and you're still eating delicious foods that your whole family can enjoy. Link down below, or go to marytot.com. But yeah, love that.
Love this topic. Laura, I'd love to hear if you have anything to add to the conversation of tips that you really like to give.
Well, I'm the queen of depth, of deepness. I like to go deep, and for some patients and clients, it's first learning how to get back to their body again. And for some people, that might be just starting to feel sensations, maybe some tingling, some heaviness, some lightness. Because what I've realized is that the things that I feel, many people can't feel. Many times you feel numbed, or you're not even aware. So it's just starting by something that is very simple, but it's not that easy, which is just pause and slow down and breathe. Breathe is very underrated. Well, we hear it a lot, but we don't really use it.
Yeah.
And conscious breathing can really help our nervous system to, okay, I got this. Like, slow down and just like even close your eyes and just like, just breathe. And just sit there for a second and just allow whatever that comes to your body just to feel it. And even if nothing is coming up, that's already a feeling, the feeling of numbness, the feeling of apathy, the feeling of nothing, right? That's already a feeling. And then obviously I like to go deeper into like, well, if this food is triggering you, I wonder, it didn't start just now, right? It's a pattern that probably has been going on for however many years you've been going through this through your whole life. Is the habit you've been practicing for such a long time. So where back in the time, maybe as a child, that you might not even be conscious about, do you like, because that's when we start our relationship with food, like seeing our parents, or sometimes it was safe back then when we were a child and we didn't know any better, that, hey, I guess I can't have these foods because then maybe I'm going to gain weight. And I guess that's not safe to be looking in a certain way to fit in this society. So as a child, you don't comprehend that, but you just do the best that you can with what you have at the moment. And then you create these protectors and you just, contract and contract and contract until you make it to your adult years. And then you keep seeing these triggers because they will keep coming back in your life until you touch in it again. It's like a little window of hey, I'm here. I'm still not processed. Come check me out. And so it's just going into those places that were really hard to process maybe at some point in the life that now lay dormant in our subconscious, and just kind of start a conversation and a relationship with this part of us that were just not conscious and just witnessing what's happening there and just creating a relationship based on that and relating differently. But that would take, it's a process, it's a journey. So I think the breathing for me, it's the quickest, and just closing the eyes and just literally just pausing, just taking a minute, even before you start a meal. I was actually doing that, and I was just, it may not look like this every day because who are we here to just, we're not perfect at all. I can't be just mindfully eating every day because it's just not how life is, right? So whenever you have the thought or the feeling of maybe pausing for just a second before you eat and just closing your eyes and just taking a breath and just really tuning into your body and asking questions how do you feel? How can I support you? And just really getting into the body, looking at the food, and really engaging all your senses. Yeah, your eyes, all the colors, all the textures. Maybe you can engage your hearing, all the crunchiness and textures that you have in your mouth. Maybe the taste, you can find the taste of cinnamon or whatever. You try to just be more present, but just breathing and slowing down. It's okay. We're not perfect at all. Even being registered dietitians, we still sometimes have to eat.
Speak for yourself.
I speak for myself. I apologize. I'm not perfect.
I love that you're bringing this up.
And on that note, I mean, there's actually studies to show people who are slower to prepare and more conscious in the preparation of their food digest better in terms of breaking down the food and absorbing the food. So it's really interesting, kind of along the lines of what you're saying, more of in a mental health aspect. It's also, again, going back to a gut health aspect of, when you're taking time to chop and smell and admire, even pray over your food, be thankful for this food, and just kind of take time versus, I'm driving, I'm stressed, I just got off the freeway, let me go through the drive-through, scarf it down, and then your tummy hurts, and then the dominoes fall where they fall. It's very different, right? Those are totally different ends of the spectrum. They can have different effects, ripple effects that go way out beyond what we can even imagine.
And on that note, I'd like to add that it's okay also if you are just carving your food. At times it's just what it is. And at times I always remind myself of this, and it's, we're always taking the best decision that we can in the moment. Mm-hmm. Of course, when we take the decision in the moment and then we took the decision, now it's the past, and now we can look back and be like, oh, well, it wasn't a good decision. Mm-hmm. But in the moment, it's always the best decision. And at some point, it was the most loving thing that we could have done for ourselves, even if it was carving the food that time.
Right.
I think it's an overall thing, right? As long as you're doing an 80-20 rule,
Totally. Yeah, totally. And going back to we're not perfect. Like I've scarfed my food down as a registered dietitian for almost a decade. Like I'm not gonna sit and say I've never been on the end of the spectrum. I've never scarfed my food down unconsciously. Like no, I did. I was probably either traveling in a hurry, or I mean, there's a number of situations where it's like, hey, I'm either not gonna eat or I'm gonna scarf my food down. I'd rather scarf my food down in this situation, right? You're doing what's best at that time. And yeah, if you can get it into that nice window of like, maybe this is happening 10, 15, 20% of the time, great. But yeah, acknowledging like, hey, I did what's best. I'm doing my best, and keep tomorrow's another day, right? Or there's another meal on the horizon before I know it. And I can work and consciously do better wherever I can. So I love that.
You bring something really nicely, James, that like this ties it up. Like it's all about the intention behind it. You know, like once you have the consciousness, like consciousness creates possibility. And when you're aware of things, you now have like a plethora of like options. And now you have all of these decisions that you consciously can take. Like, well, like you were saying, will I make my flight and just take my time or miss my flight? Or I just carve it and just move on. You decided, right? But with an intention. You know what? For me right now, in this moment, that's the best that I can do. So I'm just with this intention, I'm gonna choose this way, and I know it's not gonna be the best for my body, but I'm choosing this way instead of like on autopilot when you're just like going, and that's it.
You're making peace and you're finding that consciousness in it, which is so important. And I think that we mentioned childhood, and I know we've talked about wanting to do another live on this topic of relationships over our lifespan and how they really sprout in childhood. But I think especially in our very go, achieve, accomplish, crush, surpass society, we as parents often expect the same of our kids of like, why are you taking so long to eat? Can't you just finish, right? And our kids are so intuitive. Like they want to chat. They want to enjoy the flavors. They're trying to engage their senses, and we're discouraging them, right? They want to touch it. They want to smell it. They want to hear it. They want to taste it. And we're like, just hurry up and eat, right? So I think it often gets ingrained from a very young age of like, no, don't engage in your food. Hurry up so we can just move on to the next task. The next task is a bath, or the next task is your homework or bedtime or whatever it is. And sometimes it's just reminding yourself of, okay, I'm going to create this intentional space. I often will recommend to my patients, if that was you, right? You were that kid and you're not used to at all having these very chill, very intentional, very engaged meal times. Let's slowly start to cultivate that. And, you know, I know we were talking about before of mantras we're saying to ourselves. It doesn't need to be this like, okay, you're going to take 2 hours for your lunch break to make yourself a 6-course meal and, you know, listen to opera while you eat it. So you're just euphoric. That might not be possible. Let's start with one step. Let's move you away from your computer screen and let's have a sacred space where you eat. If that's your dining room table, if that's in the kitchen, if that's outside, wherever it is, let's try to designate a special place for you to eat. Or if you're working in an office, try to step out of that office that you're in all day long and maybe try not to always eat there. Like we're saying, you know, things happen, right? Not every day is going to be perfect, but it's that intention of saying, okay, I'm not used to this. I wasn't raised with this. It's overwhelming to me. And it sounds like such a simple concept of, yeah, just be present for your meal times. But when we're really not used to that, our brain almost sees that as a threat, right? Our brain tells us, no, you should be working. You should be talking to someone while you're eating, right? You need to maximize this time. You need to be more efficient and multitask at this time. You need to be listening to a podcast, or you need to be learning or doing something, right? You can't just eat. So it is just one step at a time saying, today I'm going to just designate a spot where I'm going to eat and only try to only eat while I'm eating, right? Or today I'm going to stop and take my deep breaths before I eat and really practice that pre-meal meditation and mindset. Today, I am going to do that activity where I'm really engaging my senses and really build on it and assess where you are with your stage and where you're even starting in that journey, because maybe you're starting where you have kind of a neutral relationship with food. So maybe it's not going to be as intricate and involved. Maybe you have a great relationship with food and we just need to slow you down and make sure that you're chewing 20 to 30 times per bite. Maybe your relationship with food is very broken. So we're really starting from scratch. So I think that's where it's so important to really be honest with yourself and really go back and understand where some of these habits came from, and then assess if you do need a little bit of support along that journey as well.
Love it. A good comment. I like the idea of saying I'm nourishing myself, because for me at least, I sometimes need a reminder to slow down and practice mindful eating and really enjoy everything I'm feeding my body with. Yeah. It's I think overall, yeah, we forget. And it's, again, knowledge is very empowering. Knowledge is key, because we forget, like, wow, we have this substance we call food, and for the most part, if we're eating whole healthy food, it's this magic almost of soil and sun and water coming together and plant DNA, and it creates, like, I think there's over 300,000, or no, sorry, 30,000 edible species of plants, like all this variety, and it grows, and we can grow it and we can eat it. We can prepare it in all these different ways, cross culturally and in many different regions. And it's like, and then we have these farmers who just have a passion to grow it and nurture it and make sure it gets to our plate. Like all of these miracles happening so we can eat. And it's like, I think we just forget all of that a lot of the time, right? Or we take it for granted, or we just weren't even aware because we didn't grow up being aware. And so now is that shift. Now is that time where you could say, let's be aware of the potato, where it comes from, or where my almond milk came from, or whatever it is you're eating or drinking, and practice that awareness. And that awareness and that knowledge will bring that gratitude, and you're just constantly seeding these things, right? Then more consciousness, and then more gratitude, and it's this beautiful dynamic, at the end of the day. And really cool stuff. Anything else to add for anyone? I think that was great. I mean, I know there's so much here with mental health, but like, sorry, we got into like gratitude of food and how we're eating. And I mean, there's so many different levels of this. We'll definitely have to have a part 2
I
to
think
this.
it's important for people to really just grasp the fact that maybe you haven't had great mental health, or maybe you haven't had a great relationship with food, and that's not a life sentence. So I think that's so important for people to really have hope for that you can continue to grow and you can continue to evolve your relationship with something that has maybe become very toxic but very commonplace to you, such as food that you're eating several times a day. And that healing is possible. We do know, studies show those with IBS tend to have much higher levels of generalized anxiety or depression or early adverse life events. So again, going back to that gut-brain connection. And, just because the data does show that, it doesn't mean that necessarily has to be something that you're living with for the rest of your life. So there is hope out there that could involve you working on the relationship yourself, could be pulling in a mental health professional like Katie mentioned in the beginning, could be pulling in a dietitian who's really knowledgeable about relationship with food, disordered eating disorder like Joseph, or another trained dietitian. But I just always like to end our lives, or mention in our lives at least, that there is hope, because I think that we're not always given that hope. And we sometimes feel like, well, maybe I'm not that type of person who's ever going to have good digestion, or because I have trauma, I'm never going to not have IBS. And so healing is possible. And sometimes it's just leaning into what your body is hoping that you'll do.
Beautiful.
I like to add to what you just said, Dahlia, because I think I just forgot what I was going to say. Yeah.
It'll come back to you.
It'll come back to me.
All right.
But I did see there was a question. Are there some breathing techniques to do before you eat? And I would just, I would just sit down, like maybe if your feet are touching the ground, just kind of grounding yourself and just like sitting, just maybe closing your eyes if that feels comfortable. If it doesn't feel comfortable, you can just lower your gaze and just like inhale, like maybe through your mouth. And then you can exhale with a sigh. And maybe you can repeat that like 2 more times, maybe like 3 times. And just by slowing down, you're already like telling your nervous system that it's okay, that you're not being chased by a lion. And it hasn't come back yet, but yeah.
Love it. Yeah. We don't want the lion to come back. But, yeah, we don't want to chase us. But I love it. Well,
yeah, we'd love to hear anything else that you, Katie, Joseph, that you really like to impart on your patients, or any other tips that you really like to share when it comes to optimizing your mental health with nutrition, or when it comes to nutrition and food.
Yeah. So just another possible breathing technique that is very simple to do. Sometimes if you're just overwhelmed and you like don't know how to do it, it's simply when you're breathing in, you just count how many seconds you're breathing in for, and then on the breath out, you just want to try to do more seconds than you breathe in for. So like if you breathe in for 3 seconds, you're just trying to breathe out for at least 4 seconds. You could go longer out, but it's just kind of taking you away from whatever stress or anxiety is going on, and just focusing on that, like 1, 2, 3, and then on the way out, just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, exhale longer is the important thing. But also just the counting and focusing on that kind of takes you away from the whatever you're stressed out about.
Yeah, because if you are running from a lion or being chased by a bear, you're not going to stop and take deep breaths, right? So it's really helpful to your nervous system to know, oh, okay, I am safe. I'm okay. I can breathe. I can take my time to breathe. And so I love these techniques that you're teaching everyone. What about you, Katie? What were some of your other thoughts or other support techniques?
Yeah, one thing that you mentioned, Dahlia, that idea of like growing up, we're a very perfectionist society and culture of we always have to be improving, we always have to be learning. But I think one thing that I really like to emphasize with my patients is the idea of you didn't fall off the bandwagon, you didn't fail. Mental health is such a journey with great highs and low lows and some places in the middle. And wherever you find yourself on that journey, it could be winding backwards and you might feel like you're not making any improvement. But by being in a session with a dietitian or with your healthcare provider, or just having that piece of fruit, you are making progress. And there's always something to reflect on, whether it's a situation that is repeating itself, that is leading to some triggers around food, around other things. There's always something that we can take away and start working on and making those really small, achievable goals.
Love that. Love, love, love that. So I think this was such a meaningful conversation. I love that we're all dietitians talking about this, because I think people think if I see a dietitian, they're just going to hand me a meal plan and ship me off. And there's so much more to it. A great dietitian really wants to know not just what you're eating, but how you're eating it, how you're digesting it, how your relationship with these foods are. And I hope that you're thriving. So thank you all for being here today. These talks are always so inspiring. Hopefully all of you watching this either now or later have taken something away from it, or are inspired to ponder on some of these things, or maybe even work with a dietitian. So thank you everybody for your time and for being here. And we hope that this has helped you not only heal with each meal, but really feel with each meal. And that's something that's so, so, so important as well.
Yes. So thank you all. Join us next month for our next dietitian talk. And happy Friday. Have a wonderful weekend. And we'll see you all very soon. All right. Bye, everyone.
Happy Friday.